ee ooh ah ah, ching chang, walla walla bang bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah, ching chang, walla walla bang bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah, ching chang.
Hello and welcome to another film night. Today we will be analyzing Annihilation 50 Shades Darker to come back. Why the f***? I don't have a script. Hello and welcome to another. Hello and welcome to another film night. I am Martin Lavelle and today we will be discussing Annihilation and 50 Shades Darker. Regarding Annihilation, we will be talking with the cameraman and the editor of Annihilation. You might know him from the previous masterpieces, Revenge from his GCSE and Yuletide. You know, the best horror movie created in the history of movie industry. Mr. Daniel Chizade. Are you on the line with us, sir? He's clearly not.
Well, thanks, Martin, for inviting me.
Mr. Rashizade, how have you used technologies and construction of your media product?
In the making of this trailer, we used a lot of technologies that I can sit here and talk about them all night. But I'm just going to talk about the main important ones that had a big role in the making of our trailer. The first one, pre-production, was SurveyMonkey. We used SurveyMonkey to a way of getting out to our audience and knowing what they like, knowing their interests, getting to know them basically. And our director, Sasha, he wrote some questions related to our movies. For example, what kind of subgenre of action do they like? What kind of villain do they like? All these were written and given a choice. For example, male, female, and these were submitted. We sent these through another technology we used, Facebook, social media. We got this questionnaire out to our audience via social media. Social media helped us to get our questionnaire to more people, as each member of the group had a certain amount of friends on Facebook. We sent this to everyone and waited for the response. So I'd say social media had a very important role in giving us ideas about our trailer. We decided to get up close with our fans, and after submitting the survey, our director Sasha, he decided to, with the director of lighting, go out and ask audience and record them. So using a DSLR camera, Sasha and Yash asked the same questions from a group of audience, but without the options.
And in an action TV trailer, do you prefer music or a voiceover?
Probably a voiceover.
Another thing in pre-production we used was Weebly. Now, because we're a group and we didn't see each other all the time, so Weebly was a way of us putting out ideas and sharing them with the group. For example, as the cameraman, I would see a shot that I liked, which I was inspired by, let's say from Jason Bourne, and I liked that shot. I would put down my Weebly website and write about it, and my other group mates can see it, and they could maybe add something to it, edit it, or just go with it, agree with it. Or let's say editing. I would put something, let's say a video from YouTube, I like it, and I put it on Weebly. Now, inspiration, talking about inspiration, YouTube, which is a video sharing platform, one of the biggest video sharing platforms, I think everyone knows that. YouTube allowed us to get ideas, inspired us. The reason we use YouTube was that there are a lot of videos on YouTube talking about everything. Let's say tutorials, which after production I used for editing. I didn't know what to do, I check it on YouTube, someone else has done it, and learn how to do it. But before pre-production, we looked at videos, other trailers, such as Jason Bourne, James Bond 007, and Pacific Rim, all these action movies that had like a similar tone to it, and we want to know what they've done that we haven't done or we could do. So we started annotating every movie, talking about the shots, the editing they've used, the sound, the narrative, how they've used it, and we put them on Weebly. Again, a way of sharing. So I would do 007, the director would do Jason Bourne, and we would talk about both of them and see what they have in common, and we would use those points. So during production, which is filming, nothing would have been possible without the camera. So the camera is one of the important tools we've used. As the cameraman, I needed a good camera to film with, so a DSLR camera was the best thing we could have got. As we were on a budget, it was cheap, it was easy to work with. Well, it was complicated, but it's easy to learn. And yeah, there are loads of tutorials out there on YouTube, which I will be talking about later on. But one thing about the DSLR camera was the frames per second that other cameras don't have, like the flip cameras. We want to get a smooth look to our movie, so we used 50 to 60 frames per second, and I'll show you a comparison of what 50 to 60 frames per second looks and what 25 to, let's say, 30 frames per second look. It was a quite big difference, and we used this in our fight scenes to get that smooth look, a smooth punch. Another option for a DSLR camera, which was really helpful, was the ability to attach a mic or a light to it. We weren't going to film in the dark, so we didn't need the light, but we did need the mic in one or two scenes. The scene that Durham comes home and says, "Honey, I'm home."
Honey, I'm home.
You wouldn't have been able to hear it as well as you did without the mic. So the mic was quite useful. Another thing that was really essential to our filming, to our production, was a tripod. Now the reason the tripod was so important was that these DSLR cameras aren't that heavy, so as a light camera, my hands would shake a lot if I was to hold the camera on its own. You could steady it to some extent, hold your breath or like pull it out just to like stretch the band, but that wouldn't have been helpful. So the tripod makes sure that the camera is steady and it's not moving. It also gave us the ability to pan easier, which there was a scene that we didn't use where Georgiana gets out of the car and the car has to stop. So the pan with the car was way easier and steady with the tripod. Also during production, something close to the tripod was our Steadicam. Now the Steadicam is basically weights on a handle that makes the camera heavy and makes it look steady. We use the Steadicam in the scene where Caden and Sasha are dealing money, so you see the camera just following Caden. This tracking shot I personally came up with it on the set because I thought it's a good way of showing the importance of this scene. So post-production, where all the editing happens, the making of the trailer. For editing, I used Adobe Premiere as my main tool because it was a really good and it was easy to learn. I experimented a lot with it in AS and learned how to use it. This year, I was experimenting again, but with more complex stuff, such as lighting or adding gunshots. Since I was experimenting with different tools, I came across Stabilizer, and Stabilizer was one of my favorite tools. One place I used this was the dealing scene where I used Steadicam, and when I was using the Steadicam, it shook a bit, but it was a smooth shake. When I used the Stabilizer, the scene was very smooth. It looked like it was done professionally. The scene where you have Durham standing in the door and you have the camera panning up. I used the handheld and I tried to steady it as much as possible, but it didn't work. So I had to use Stabilizer to stabilize it basically, and it looked amazing afterwards. It looked very smooth. It looked professionally done again. So that was one of my favorite tools, the Stabilizer. The next tool was it wasn't really a tool. It was the fact that Adobe Premiere allowed me to stick images and videos on top of the other videos. So when we had the gunshot, Durham sniping, I wanted to make it look realistic as possible, so I want to put a real gunshot. So we filmed it pretending like there's a gunshot, and like with the recoil and everything. It looked very good, but I still wanted to have the gunshot. Going on YouTube again, which was where we got inspired, where we learned everything from. Going on YouTube, I typed in, for example, gunshots, green screen effect, and it all came up. I used my favorite one. I needed one that you could see it from front. So I used one, and Adobe Premiere allowed me to stick this onto the actual footage, move it around, get rid of the green screen, and it was all done very quickly. It wasn't complicated at all. It was very easy to do, and yeah, I think that's one of my favorite tools too. Comparing this to iMovie, which I've used in previous movies, I think it was a big step up, as iMovie was quite simple. In GCSE I used iMovie, and you just cut and put them next to each other. That's all we did. That's all you could do. As a group, we needed to produce one poster, one magazine cover, and a trailer. I was in charge of the trailer, and our director and director of lighting, Yash, were in charge of the poster and the magazine cover. So one tool we used was the spot healing tool, which, you know, Sasha had to use it a lot because our models weren't professional models. The next tool was the fade tool used to blend the images.
And that wraps it up for tonight's film night.
I am the one, the way your son don't need a gun to get respect.